Hi guys, welcome back to the OCD Recovery channel. Today we don't have the boy gang over here. Today we have a fresh new face on this channel. We have Gemma with us.
Hello,
Say hi,
everyone.
Gemma.
Hi, how are
So
you?
we thought we needed some like new energy on this channel and we needed a new face, and it's always good to hear from different people about their like OCD journey and relate notes with them on that. So with Gemma, obviously since you are new, people hear from me and Nick all the time. Let's start with you and tell us like what are your earliest memories of having OCD or behaving in a way that you can now say that, oh, maybe I had OCD at the time.
So if we're going really early, this isn't actually massively memories that I have, but my mum has said that from around the age of 4 or 5, I had quite an intense fear of death. And
Mm,
every kind of bedtime, I would be getting really upset and I would be saying, I don't want to go to sleep because I'm scared of dying. And I mean, maybe that is just a child thing, but now that I know I have OCD, I kind of look back at things like that and I'm like, wow, was it actually developing that early?
yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, as a teenager, I was getting quite a lot of intrusive thoughts and constantly confessing about that and going through lots of mental health services and things to try and find what the issue was. Um, I only got diagnosed with OCD last year and I'm 28 now. So it's been a very
Oh, I'm
long.
28 as well, by the way.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, we're the same
You,
age.
you look
Nick is
better
30.
than me at
So.
28.
I
Rough old
someone
life. Rough old life.
someone just recently said to me that, oh, when I saw your picture on WhatsApp, I thought you were 16 years old. People don't like if you see me in
I don't
person,
know if
by
that's
the
a
way.
compliment or not.
Yeah, I in some ways I guess I don't have to worry about looking old very quickly, but at the same
There is
time
that.
at 28 people don't take me seriously. Like if I ever go to have a meeting with someone or something, it's like people are going to look at me like, oh, some kid is walking in and he's going to tell us how it's done.
You answer
So
your door and people ask if your mum and dad's home.
yeah,
That's
exactly. But anyway, so yeah, that's really interesting. So wait, when you say that in your teenage years you were going through mental health services, is this like your early teens or in your later teens you started reaching out?
I'd say in my later teens, so when I was about 14, 15, is when I really started struggling. And that's kind of when I started going through mental health services and things. But as I say, the OCD was never picked up on at that point. I was always told I was anxious, I was depressed. I had my daughter quite young. I had my daughter when I was 16. Um,
Okay.
so then after I had her, that's when it really ramped up. Um, and then I was told it was postnatal depression, it was anxiety. But again, I mean, OCD was never really mentioned to me. It was never a thing they
Mm.
looked at. I mean, I suppose it just wasn't really as big then. I mean, it's a lot more understood now, isn't it? So,
I also think maybe it's because now we are part of the OCD community in that sense, and
mm,
because we are actively engaging in the community, so we see it way more. But I
yeah,
feel like if we weren't, we probably wouldn't be seeing it still as much, perhaps.
probably
Maybe a
not.
yeah.
little bit because of Instagram. A little bit, people might be seeing it a bit more, but still, I think like not much. Nick, what about you? What are your earliest memories of what you now think was OCD behavior? I mean, your entire childhood, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I was always a very intense person, as who would have thought?
Mm,
I was always super intense, wanted to be. We were on a phone call the other day and we were talking about even before like a year or two before it became chronic when I was 26, 27. Even Erica said, now looking back when we were dating, you always wanted to be the first one at class, the first one done with a test. Like you rushed everything. You never took your time on anything. You were way more task orientated than goal orientated. You were just like living for tasks. And the earliest memories I have now that I'm looking back, I think you've heard me talk about this moment, but you probably haven't, Gemma, is my mom used to come up to me. I had a playroom when I was like 9, 10, and 11 in our house. And my mom would say, where's the food that we're giving you? She found that I was hiding my food all around the room. So she like moved a dresser and there was like literally months worth of food like compressed against the wall. So my mom kind of chalked that up to, she's like, what is that about? Then I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was probably 12. They took me to a really big hospital in New York. And I remember still to this day, my mom says the neurologist said, he has one of the worst cases of ADHD I've ever seen. Because I just, wouldn't sit still and I would just be all around, which is another conversation because people are very afraid of having ADHD, right? They say, oh, what if you have ADHD and OCD, you can't recover. You can recover with ADHD. It's 100%. So those are
Nick, wait, so do you have like, do you actively remember moments where you were hiding your food, or where you do you remember your thought process when you were doing that?
No, that's what's weird about it. So remember how I told you, Momin and Gemma, you might have heard me say this, how from 20 to 28, like when it became chronic, I would just apply like cocoa butter like 20 times a day. I actually never thought about why I don't even know. Like sometimes you're so into it. When I got better from my other compulsive behaviors, like some of my addictions, now when I look back on it, I say, wow, when I have one-to-one calls with people and they ask me about questions, oh, there's the cat, ask me about questions with, do you think that, adult website addiction, do you think alcoholism, do you think that hard drug usage has played into OCD? And I say, I wouldn't look at it in that perspective. I would look at it as OCD trigger, go to a short-term relief, whether it's pornography or heroin or alcohol. And then like I'm working with a guy now, and we've been talking about this for 4 calls, and he says, wow, I didn't realize how much that played into my OCD. And you don't realize that Erica was the one that spotted it. Erica said, one thing I noticed about you is if we were having a conversation and you were flustered, she said you would like go into the bathroom and like take a bath, which is where I use adult websites. So I would play I'm going to go play a couple games of Call of Duty. She said, I never thought anything of it until you started suffering severely. But another big one I do remember, I do have conscious memories of this. I think a lot of OCD sufferers, because this will be great transitioning into guilt and shame. I was a major pathological liar, like major liar. And the reason why I lied, I think, was because of conditional self-acceptance. But anytime I didn't want to face something like a reality, I would just lie. I would just lie about it, right? To make myself feel better. And it was the dumbest stuff. Like I remember thinking about the stuff I lied about to my mom. There was no benefit. There was no like pro of the lie. I would just lie about something for no reason.
In that way, I would say like there is like the concept of like compulsive lying that people do, because it's constant. I think it's the way of like just like trying to run away from yourself, or trying to run away from an uncomfortable fact,
and also to make people view you better as well. I mean, I used to exaggerate quite a lot. Like I'd tell a story and I'd really try and play myself off as something that wasn't there, that didn't happen, because I wanted people to think well of me. I didn't like the idea that people didn't think I was really cool and I was this and I was that.
That's such a great point, Gemma. I just told Rob this yesterday, real quick moment. After we hiked, we went out to this new bar called Trainwreck. It's a sports bar, brand new, just opened up a month ago. And I was sitting there, and Erica said to me, she like caught me. I was doing my OCD like analyzing of human behavior. And I was sitting there waiting for my food like this. And she's like, what are you looking at? And I said, I don't think people realize, like I watched a guy walk, I'm on my phone, but like, let's say this is my phone right here. I watched a guy walk in and he was like, with his phone out. And I said, these people are injecting a drug of conditional self-acceptance, and they don't even know they're doing the drug. It blinds to them, like it was to me. And that's where I think why shame and guilt latches so hard is because we don't even realize how conditional we are.
Yeah, and Gemma, what you just said, I think, and because I think Nick has had an element of this, I've had it for sure. And if you've also had it, like, I think, especially when you have like chronic guilt and shame that's latching, or there's conditional self-acceptance, I think there is an element to our personality that's very performative. Like, I think we know how to perform in front of an audience. We know
Oh,
how to
100%. I say that all the time to people. I say I'm basically an actress at this point because I worked in hospitality for years as well. So
mhm.
even when I was suffering and things, I was still constantly working with people around me at all times, always work with customers. So a lot of my personality became something that I completely put on. And
Mm,
even if I was feeling quite bad, I was very good at pretending I was absolutely fine, which is actually quite good. And I think I felt a lot better when I was in that job because I had to perform at all times. And now I kind of work in an office job where I don't really have to speak to people as much. I think that's kind of that contributed to making it worse again because I wasn't always having to put on a front as much.
Yeah, it's interesting how OCD can manifest in basically every way you could imagine. And this is why Momin and I always talk about, especially, Momin and I doing more one-to-ones, and we're really seeing how it kind of latches with different people. The practical understanding of OCD is just the most vital part. Because like when you cut something out and your anxiety spikes up for 2 months, right? If you have a major compulsion, like when I took out video games, whoa. Like that's when my physical symptoms of anxiety were like I couldn't even see straight. Like the way how Momin's background looks was almost like it was like I had a depth of perception, and then it's how Momin's background looked. Like I would see people and I would be like, what is going on? Like I was so
It's really
anxious.
trippy, isn't it? The
It's trippy.
depersonalization is so trippy.
And I think that real quick too, this is what's so funny. Moment and I speak about this a lot. No one could understand this, but you hear the craze about, oh, anxiety is so bad for you. Anxiety kills you. You have to live a stress-free life. I'm like, yo, if you could feel what an anxiety suffer, like it's just, and there's been people for all eternity that have lived till 90 years old like that. They have had no help and they've lived till 90.
and by the way, that's again, so I don't know if I've ever experienced depersonalization or derealization. I mean, again, I don't know how to categorize it. I don't know, like in terms of like the things I've experienced, I don't know if I would categorize it that way, but I do know that especially when I was very deep in chronic anxiety, I would be talking to people and I would start to see, like, start to see stars and colors. Like my vision started to just become this, like, I don't know, there was something there, and
That
I
sounds
could.
very similar to mine. Like the edges would come in on things. It's like suddenly I couldn't see anything out of the peripherals, and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like
that's
it's
kind of
tunnel
Yeah,
vision.
and
Yeah.
slowly I felt
yeah.
myself drifting away from that, or that person drifting away from me, in the sense that I could hear that person, and obviously whatever they would say was registering in my brain. But at the same time I was hyper aware of completely disconnecting to them as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was just
Yeah.
a strange feeling. Yeah.
And that goes to show you too. I mean, it's hard because then people are like, "Oh, are you reassuring me?" About the anxiety thing. It's just no. You have to look at it from a basic reality that human beings are meant to adapt under stress, whether it's physical or mental stress.
Yeah.
People have this perception that they're gonna get anxious and like explode into a ball of dust. And I tell people you could stay this anxious, like at 80% anxiety for the remainder of your life. And it might kill you early, but it's not like what we think, right? That perception of the
Yeah.
world.
We don't come. It's not like we combust or something like
Yeah,
that. That's how,
exactly.
like,
Or
you
or like,
perceive it.
how people, the longevity thing. I was talking this about someone. What's the actor's name who plays Thor? What's that guy's name?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, so he has a new show coming. Of course, Momin knows that.
I should have known that.
I have 20 pictures on my wall. So he has a new show coming out, which is based on, it's literally titled like the longevity, like how to live longer. And it's about like perfecting longevity. And when someone says they're a longevity expert to me, the only thing that goes through my mind is, so you're really good at not living, just existing. That's what you're really good at. And like, it's funny because it's like, yeah, I eat healthy. Yeah, like I go to the gym, but I mean, crap, I could die today in a car accident. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's just like we're so obsessed with longevity. But that, I want to segue because Momin, we wanted to talk about this with Gemma. How did you see the tunnel of light when you were suffering with shame and guilt? What was like the first couple steps where you thought, oh, there is a tunnel at the end of this? What did that look like?
There's a light at the end of it.
Yeah.
Not a tunnel.
I see a tunnel at the end of the.
I see a tunnel at the end. Oh my God, I'm stuck in this tunnel.
I knew what you meant. I wasn't going to say anything.
No, Momin was like, I'll correct it.
I had to.
Straight in there. So do you mean like at what point did I start to see that there was some hope?
Like how long from, and this is not a guideline for people, from when you actually started to apply the tools, how long did it take you to see that light? That's a good question.
I would say, I mean, see the light was probably a couple of months in, and that's because the first book it just did something amazing. Like, even though obviously I'm still working on recovery now, I still got a long way to go. The changes just after reading the first book were quite monumental for me, because I read it and I just understood it, and I was like, wow, it made so much sense to me. And I was like, all this time I've been going, it was my past, it was my upbringing, it was my parents, it was everyone else's fault apart from mine. And I read that and I went, okay, I'm doing this to myself. Breakthrough, absolute breakthrough. I can't change any of that. I can change myself though. So yeah, I'd say a couple of months. I mean, so I started with OCD recovery in January, so I'm 9-10 months in now. I've still got a lot of work to do, but the change from how I was in January has been massive. And even though I'm still,
what were you like in January? Explain that to the people. Like how bad were you, let's say, back half of last year to January?
I was bad. I was really bad. I mean, I've never been bad to the point of, like some people end up housebound and things like that. I've never got to the stage where I can't leave the house, or I've always been very good at forcing myself to do things regardless. And, I haven't taken time off work with it, and I've still looked after my daughter like I'm a single parent. But I was at the point where I was thinking, if this is my life, I'm not sure I want it anymore. And, it was just constant confession. My mum, bless her, she had to listen to a lot. It was just constant reassurance seeking, constant confession. Every night I was absolutely petrified. I was so scared. And it's actually quite nice saying all this, because I'm thinking, even though sometimes I don't feel like I've made progress, when I think back to that, I'm like, yeah, there's been a big change. Even if sometimes I don't feel it, there's been a big change.
That's a great realization too. I think what you just said. I started making some new changes in myself, and this goes to show you, I think this is very important to cover for someone that's even been working on recovery for about a little over 2.5 years for me. I think Momin's over 3 years. When I first met Rob, like 2.5, around there. Only recently did I realize I was doing something that was compulsive, and it was super subtle. I mean, it was subtle. I mean, Momin even has talked about this in his videos. Sometimes it takes a while to even realize like what is compulsive and what isn't. So this is what I do. I mean, I put it in my journal, and I said, I'm gonna cut this out and see what happens. Why not? Just see what happens. And it spiked my OCD pretty good. And I was like, And then I analyzed and I thought, oh, I guess that would make sense because it was another certainty thing. It takes a while to really notice things. And I think this is so important to cover, like whether it's shame, guilt, feeling contaminated, like Momin and I talked about, the actual feeling of being contaminated, depersonalization, derealization. When you've been feeling good for so long, like we talked about Gemma recently, and you have that quick spike, it is very easy to fall down the hole again because you can't even catch yourself. It's like when you do catch, you're already in the hole. And now you have to come back out again and change your perspectives again in a different way.
And also, like what Gemma you also point out is important, because when you are going along the journey, sometimes you just, because we're so focused on, oh my god, I'm still suffering, I still have anxiety, I still have intrusive thoughts, why am I still going through this, blah blah. But then when you actually just take a minute to reflect, you think, okay, actually, you know what, I have made some progress. Like it takes a while to get that perspective, because especially when you see hope, I think it's also like almost this addictive thing. Like we want more of it. We're like, oh, okay, so this is working, this is going good, I want more of it, I want to go further along. And so because of that, we sometimes lose sight of the daily small victories that we are. And I said this a few times, I feel like the recovery journey is not like one big victory. It's like a series of very small victories on a daily basis that accumulate to making that big win. There's no one moment where you're like,
many peaks and troughs. That's basically what it is. It's funny you say that, Moment. So the book that Rob and I always been talking about, Ray Dalio's Principles, if you go on YouTube and you just type in this, I think Gemma, you actually would really like this in Moment. If you just type in Ray Dalio Principles, there's a 30-minute YouTube video that he did 4 years ago that sums up the book. And it's the best infographics about how he did it. And he's a hiker, and the whole thing, he's a hiker. And he shows what you just said, Moment. He said, most people think that you climb the mountain and you're like, I did it. He goes, but once you get to the top of that mountain, you look in the distance and you see all these other mountains. So it's like constant. And the way he does it is so similar to OCD recovery. His is like this. It's like loops that go forward. And he's like progress, problem, redirection, solution, and like it just repeats for life. Whether it's OCD or not is totally irrelevant, because we're all going to have problems in our lives, like world disasters, like Pakistan Moment, stuff about anything that could happen. So I think go ahead, Moment.
And I mean, like, well, first of all, I think it's a good time to tell you I am Ray Dalio. I am the one who said that. But
that's why Nick enjoyed it so much. It was you.
Exactly.
Guys, you know what? It was time to reveal it to the world. But I think it's just that like everybody needs change in the sense that everybody has a room to grow and change as a person. Like I don't know anybody, even like you pick like some person in history who is also just very celebrated. They had their fallibilities as well. They were faulty people as well. They made mistakes. So everybody has a room to grow and change and evolve. And maybe people with OCD a bit more, since we are doing so many unhealthy behaviors that are not conducive to a great lifestyle, that are keeping us fearful. But like generally speaking, it is ultimately a journey to change yourself, and that's about it. Just making your life better.
That's the best piece of advice I've taken from Moment. Truly, when Moment says that, when Moment said that in the webinar, that one time about OCD changing, that has stuck with me ever since. You want to know something else, Gemma? That's funny. Before we like knew each other, and like I would do things like yell at people and like all sorts of stuff. When Rob yelled at me, this is a true story. Moment's never heard me say this before. When Rob would yell at me, it was almost like, we've talked about this, like almost like a brother. When Moment would yell at me, I would be like, oh shit. I'm like, oh man. Moment would be like, Nick, this is not acceptable. I'd be like, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, I haven't had that from Moment yet. You must be
that's because
a bit more difficult than me.
It's because you're not a maniac from New Jersey that had a plethora of anger beliefs that needed to be worked on. Like Momin would,
But
Momin would,
Nick, like I do it in a nice way.
but you're
I do it in
the
a
way
very
it's
nice,
so
polite way.
good is Momin is like he's almost like the grandmother that like when you do something, the grandmother's like, stop that, and like
It
hits you
takes
on
their
the
slipper off and throws it at you.
Yeah.
but it's the truth, because this is why the tough love is so important. Like Momin was there, Gemma, like 2.5 years ago, where he probably remembers this. We've talked about this when someone brought up like arranged marriages, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing ever. That's so stupid. And they were trying so hard to be like rational and calm with me, but it like Gemma, it was just like nothing was penetrating. And but it's the truth. But I wanted to ask
If
you.
you can reach a good level of acceptance, then I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, I was very irrational. Gemma, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How important were building lifestyle factors for you in the first, like from January to June, the first 6 months of your journey? How important was it to take the recovery seriously, to do the reading, to do the exposures? How important was that for your overall progress to where you are now?
I was very good at, as I say, going to work, doing what needed doing at home. Apart from that, I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to lay on the sofa. I wanted to scroll my phone. I wanted to go on Netflix. I wanted anything that was going to give me a little bit of relief for a short period of time. Didn't really work. But it was very big for me to then start going out, doing things. I went to Poland with my mum recently for 3 days, which is something that I couldn't have thought of doing before
You
because
talked about that, yeah.
because I didn't want to be out of my comfort zone. I wanted to be in my house where I knew if I got anxious, I could be on my own and there was no one there to see it. So yeah, that was really big for me. And then I'm trying to get out most evenings at the moment. So even though it's quite dark early and stuff, me and my daughter are going out for a walk. We're going out for one after the video, even though it's already 7 o'clock here. We're going out to get a
Nice,
hot chocolate from a pub near us and go for a walk. And
nice.
it just makes you feel so much better. I mean, not in the moment, not compulsively. Don't go, oh, I'm really anxious, I'm going to go out for a walk. But just
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it as a everyday thing, it just, it makes you just being around people and involved in the world. It brings you out of your little bubble of anxiety and I hate
Even
everyone
when
and
you're suffering,
everything. And
even when you're experiencing symptoms, I mean, that's what's so
yeah,
great about what you said. I mean, people would say to me, when you were hiking, were you like totally present? No, I was suffering every single minute of those hikes.
absolutely.
Like my brain
By
would.
the way, like nobody, I think even when you are not suffering, even when you are recovering, I don't think the human brain is designed to be fully present at all moments. Like right now that we're talking, obviously there is a part of my brain, like Gemma talking to us, a part of her brain is probably thinking, oh, I have to go for a walk with my daughter after this. And
Her
maybe I have
brain's
to wear
like
a
this. Her
jacket when I
brain's
go
thinking, I have to find a mate because I'm going to be alone forever. That's what her brain's thinking right now.
out.
I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life.
Not all of us
She's
can find
thinking, when
someone
am
that's
I
going to put
leaving
up
this
with us
house?
the way Erica puts up with you,
And
Nick.
Moment is off the limits now. Moment's gone. He can't even be a viable option.
Exactly. So like, no, but like, and so that's very important to remember that two opposing feelings, emotions, or thoughts can exist at the same time. Like you can feel happy, but also be sad about something at the back of your mind, or vice versa. Like
Absolutely.
like
I
the
went
human
to,
brain is way too
sorry,
complex.
No,
Sorry,
it's the
sorry,
go ahead
truth.
Momin.
now.
It's the truth.
I went to, so I recently had a bit of a relapse when I came off of medication, which was a given, let's
Mm-hmm.
face it. And that's probably the worst depersonalization I felt. But I was very much, I cannot just sit back and let it get to me again. So I actually went out to a fair with my daughter, and it was the sketchiest experience ever. Everything looked weird, the noises, the set, everything felt It was pretty awful, to be honest. Not the life, the experience. Um,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I was still having the odd moment where I'd see my daughter on a ride and I'd go, "Oh, that's really nice." And then you can have like such opposite feelings and they can coexist. And the thing is, most people, if you don't have OCD, you don't really think about, oh, why am I feeling a bit happy and a bit sad at the same time? But it's only because of the condition that we think that we have to feel a certain way. Whereas,
Yeah.
Yeah, we
you know,
take our
most people wouldn't
consciousness,
even.
we basically take our consciousness and we put it on the table, and we're like
Yeah.
a doctor trying to do like an
Magnifying
anatomy.
glass.
Yeah, you're like,
Immediately remove anything bad over there and just trying to keep the happy parts.
no, this
Since we are coming to the end of this call, I guess, Gemma, I want to, I like, what would you say to someone who is on the recovery journey right now, who is either just suffering or in the middle of it? Like, do you have any words of wisdom, 2 or 3 important points or something that you would like to highlight for them?
So working on acceptance, obviously, that's our number one. That's the main thing. Not compulsively. Don't ever do it in the moment to try and escape a feeling, but in the background of everything else you're doing, working on your acceptance is massive. I'd say, oh, I hate to quote Nick, but wearing it like an uncomfortable coat. It's very true. It is so important, no matter how you're feeling, that you just carry on as normal. Um, I think with the shame and guilt, um, letting that feeling be there. You know, there's nothing you can do to stop it in the moment. If there is, the chances it's a compulsion and you're making it worse in the long run. So just allowing that to be there and feeling like absolute shit is fine.
that's a great, because we have 1 minute left. I wanted to just add
Sorry.
a little thing onto this. I haven't told both of you this yet. So the next call we're gonna do, I want you to come back, Gemma, and obviously Momin, and we're gonna bring Erica on. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have Erica talk about from a family perspective, which is good. And then I want to do basically like an all-female one. So like Gemma, Jade, Erica, like different people
Yeah.
that give a different perspectives, because this is why it's so important to get people on. But Gemma, thank you so much for being on here. We'll do a longer one again with just the 3 of us.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys soon. I mean, thank you, Momin, for everything, of course.
No
Brilliant. Thank you
problem.
very
See
much,
you
guys.
guys. Great
See
talking
you
to you,
guys
Gemma.
Bye.
later.